Live. We're live. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the recording of the next podcast episode, number 193. We have our guest today. There's me, there's Jake, and we're going to kick it off right now. 5, 4, 3.
So, Kip, what are we going to talk about today on episode 193 of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast?
It's all about AI transformation, Jake, right? I mean, everyone's got to figure out how are we going to get this technology into our organizations in a way that actually makes sense for the tons of money that we're spending on it. And so we're going to explore that. Like, if you're a technology leader or just somebody who's taking the lead position on getting AI, well, how do you do that? And how do you do that without losing your teams, right? Because anytime you do a big technology transformation, some people feel alienated, disempowered, so there's a real human dimension to this. And so we invited Jenny Moshe, right? So she's here. Jenny and I have known each other for a long time. She's a highly experienced chief information officer. Now, currently, she recently founded a company called Kinetic Shift, and she helps organizations use AI in order to compete and to grow. And I just thought she would be an excellent guide for us. So, Jenny, welcome to the podcast. We're glad you're here. Would you please introduce yourself?
Well, thank you, Kip, and it's great to see you, Jake. And before we dig in, I have a gift for you, Kip.
Oh, I love gifts. Yes.
I just completed your 50th review on Amazon for Fire Doesn't Innovate because
yay!
And I encourage people to get that second edition. So it's been my Bible when I was a new CIO. It helped me have great conversations with the board. So I just wanted to put a plug in. I can't wait for the second edition. And I was so relieved to hear that you didn't remove section 2, but you've refreshed it with more current examples. So I love it. Can't wait to dig in.
Yeah, that's right. And if you don't have your second edition yet, shame on me, because you deserve a free second edition because you're such a strong supporter, and I really appreciate it. And just to be clear, everybody, that wasn't in the outline.
It was not.
No, I snuck it in because I'm a huge advocate. I love it because it's easy to read and it's fun and it's appetizing for the reader, and it's in all languages for all people of all levels of tech. So, and non-tech especially. Anyway.
But who are you?
I am. Well, Jenny Moshe, and I'm actually a mom of 3 very tall teenagers in addition to everything else I do. So, after beginning my career in tech as a business analyst, I've spent over 25 years leading tech and serving most recently as a chief information officer. And I'm also one of the founders of the Seattle Enterprise AI Roundtable here locally. And recently, as you mentioned, I founded my own company, and I am the CEO and a fractional AI advisor for Kinetic Shift. And so what we do is offer friendly, accelerated AI strategy process, which is guided by former CIOs, which makes us a little bit different. And it's powered by AI-assisted tech to prioritize people first roadmap. So it's all about people. And that's been a thread through my entire career. And so my mission is to create high five heroes with an AI strategy that empowers people.
I love that. I love the emphasis on people. Obviously, that's completely consistent with the way I think about my domain of expertise. So no wonder why you and I are, it's so easy for us to understand each other and talk about, how we ought to do things. So really glad for you to be here. Well, we should probably get going, right, Jake? I think you've got the first question.
I do. So let's start with the big picture here. Every technology shift, I think, feels scary at first. I think AI definitely is scary, but it seems different because it seems like it might always be scary. I don't know. People are really worried about losing their jobs. We're really worried about trusting AI. The entire concept of hallucinations didn't help very much. My firm, we just hired a change manager to help with AI. So what are you seeing out there And how much of this rings true with what you've seen professionally and how you're handling it?
I love that you all just hired a change manager, because that's where this begins. And I think you're absolutely right. AI feels different, and it should. When we've done traditional tech in the past with email or moving to the cloud, people had to learn new tools, but they still felt like they were in control of their work. And with AI, we're asking people to trust systems that make decisions they can't always see or understand. And that's a much deeper ask. So the companies who I work with that are succeeding with AI, they're not just training people on new software, a new tool. They're actually helping their teams reimagine what their roles could be, or what their roles could become, and really eliminating the tedious, busy work.
And let's pause there for a second, because I think one thing you said is so important and it makes AI so different, which is it's not just about training people on the latest software update, right? This is not akin to going from Lotus Notes or WordPerfect to Microsoft Word. It isn't even.
Jake, your age is showing. You might want to tuck that back in.
Hey, I like old software. To be honest, I've never actually used Lotus Notes or WordPerfect to my knowledge. I may have actually seen WordPerfect.
But those were like.
I can't believe you brought up Lotus Notes. I used to train people going from Microsoft Office to Outlook to Lotus Notes.
Oh,
that's
a different direction.
But this is perfect though, right? Because this is what, for a long time, that's what change management in IT was. It was moving from one specific piece of software to another. And let's face it, at those points, the user experiences, or so that's even a modern term, the user interface, if we go back far enough, it wasn't even a GUI technically, right? It wasn't even graphical. There wasn't necessarily even a mouse. But let's just assume that we're in the more modern world, and it was about where to click, what to click, and when to click it, right? And AI, as I have been dealing with so much recently, is a fundamental. It's a full paradigm shift in the way that humans interact with machines.
Mm-hmm.
And to fail to recognize that is to fail to understand the scope of the change that needs to be managed here.
Yeah.
React.
Yes, I think you're spot on, Jake. And what's more is that it's so abstract for people. They are grasping, they are trying to hold on to something familiar, and it's not.
Yes.
It's just not.
So I'm going to be interrupting and get really excited this entire episode, which might go for a full hour or longer, or it could, because I'm curious if you've seen this. Do you see groups of particularly decision makers in businesses talk about AI, get involved in the process, but it turns out they haven't really used AI? So when it comes time to guide the company or the groups, if you're someone involved in this process who's used AI, you begin to feel very quickly like, am I the only one who's actually tried to use AI? Do you see this?
It's real, and it's fascinating because I'm in some high enterprise circles around, technology, and AI is not just ChatGPT. And I think that's what people think a lot of the times when I'm talking in circles and networking. And I've been very caught off guard by the level of engagement but I also think it's a threat to people's jobs and roles. And so there's a balance to the human factor there.
And I think there's people who haven't even tried ChatGPT, but will talk about it as if they know everything there is to know about how to use it. And there's also a surprising number of people who I think are not using it because they feel threatened by it.
Right.
And I get it. I feel threatened by it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I think, to me, that seems new. Like, I don't know. Maybe the last time someone felt threatened by a piece of software, and let's be honest, that's what this is. I mean, it's a highly sophisticated combination of software and hardware, but it's still a program. I don't know, maybe Excel freaked people out, but I don't think so, because I don't think anyone liked doing spreadsheets by hand.
Well,
I calculators freak people out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But also, I mean, we can go back and find all kinds of cases of freakouts, all the way back to the people, the Luddites, right, who destroyed the looms that were going to take over their job. But I think most recently, what I saw was cloud. I mean, and I still see IT professionals just hating on cloud, and for all kinds of different reasons. But that's the one that. That sticks out to me the most right now is just because I think it changes their jobs, right? If I'm an expert at on-premises machines and keeping them running, but they're going away and I'm not getting any more, well, what happens to me, right? Now I've got to relearn.
Yeah,
and that's why I feel like a spy sometimes in a Mission Impossible movie, because I sometimes go in or get asked to go in. They can call me whatever role they call me, so it's stealth. But it's helping those executives have the knowledge and have me in their pocket, basically, to help guide them on, directionally which way to go or what to think about, or the bigger picture and what's available, because they're in their specific industry, their specific lane of technology and their legacy systems and enterprise systems. And so they don't always know all the things that might be possible. And so I bring that a lot of the times, but it's undercover. And sometimes people are like, can you just, look at this over here in this corner, but, just be quiet about it. So that's fine. I go in as stealth mode, Mission Impossible. I feel like Jenny Bond.
There you go.
Well, in case anybody's listening right now and they're like, why are we talking about this on the Cyber Risk Management Podcast? Like, what,
it's a
how does
huge
this fit?
cyber risk. And Kip, I'm glad you asked that, because I was going to ask that too, just so I could quickly shoot down our own hypothetical question, which is, cyber risk is intrinsic in AI adoption, right? I mean, one of the things that's slowing us down is just figuring out data labeling and data access because of confidentiality concerns, right? Integrity is a problem that, doesn't come up all the time in our modern cyber risk landscape. But you give an agent the ability to edit files. I mean,
well, we call it hallucinations. That's modern integrity.
You have to have agents watching the agents.
I mean, it could be. So, Kip, I mean, I'm going to push back slightly on that, only because hallucinations are a trust issue. But I think when I was talking about integrity, I was talking about what Jenny was just saying, which is, like, maybe you haven't tried this. I've allowed Claude via an MCP server to have full file access to what's on my Mac. And I said, hey, can you help me organize my desktop and my downloads folder? And it made this joke that the downloads folder is where organization went to die, and I'd committed some kind of war crime against organization. And I actually thought it was pretty funny.
That's deep.
Yeah, Claude Sonnet 4 is pretty good. But then I said, go ahead and fix it. And on its own, autonomously, it created a whole bunch of new folders, a folder structure, and moved a bunch of files. And it would check in every so often. But when I said integrity right then, I meant literal file integrity, because it is not going to be okay. It's really useful, right?
Yeah.
I hate organizing my downloads folder. If I can have a bot organize my downloads folder for me, that's really helpful. So this is going to happen on a broader and enterprise scale, where AI agents have access to the file structure and file system. So when I said integrity, that's what I was talking about.
Wow.
And I think the answer is agents watching agents. But Kip, have you not tried this yet?
I've seen other people jump out of airplanes without parachutes before, but I'm not going to do it.
Well, so the only reason I did it, Kip, as you know, I no longer use my Mac as my primary work machine.
Yes,
so
it's a sad day.
It is a sad day, but the stakes for me playing with it like that are pretty low.
Okay.
By comparison.
So
Plus,
you were kind of in a sandbox.
I was essentially in a sandbox. I have the backups, but the point is incredibly, look, there's no question that AI creates cyber risks. And the first cyber risk that I'm going to steal from you, Kip, is trust.
Yeah.
It's a huge issue. How do we build trust when we either can't see how the AI is making decisions? And by the way, it was interesting to watch. You can get chain of reasoning, right? You can display it, but what's interesting about that is even that is a summary in some ways of what it's actually thinking.
Right.
And we don't really know how it's doing that. So how do we move forward with things like this when, in some ways the functionality is there and it's a black box?
Yeah, I agree. It's not just about whether the tool works, but with every tool, you introduce some element of cyber risk, I think.
Yes.
There's no free flowing tool that just gets deployed innocently. And so just like with AI, I think it is trust is completely different because it makes decisions off in isolation. But it's also about, I think it's about whether people feel comfortable letting it influence and letting go of a little bit of that control for some decisions, or at least helping contribute to the decision-making process with research and the deep diving and surfacing up elements for a decision or important decision. But the organizations I see that are building real trust are doing three things really well. They're brutal. First, they're brutally honest about what their AI can and cannot do. And so they've carved out what it's doing. And second, they keep humans in the loop for decisions that matter. And that's one of my founding principles at Kinetic is human in the loop by design, because the humans are part of the ecosystem. And it's not, the companies I work from Main Street to enterprise are humans, and they're resource constrained as it is. So expanding what's possible, keeping those humans in the loop. And then third, when something goes wrong, and it always will, they don't just blame the algorithm. They don't just blame the tool. They showcase and surface up. Here, look what we found. And so that trust grows when people see that you're not trying to hide behind the technology and you're being honest with them.
And yeah, I think this whole idea of trust, right? Trust in technology has been going on for a while. ISACA, as an organization a couple of years ago, their annual theme was digital trust, right, as a focus area for everybody. So, this isn't the first time that the idea of trustworthy computing, right, has come up. But I do think we're certainly at an inflection point where it's really being amplified right now in a way that I don't think we've experienced before.
And I want to acknowledge that Kip, thanks to your innovation of using this StreamYard, we have live comments that are asking questions.
Yeah,
and I've not accounted for that in the past. But those asking questions, if we can weave that in, I will.
Well, let's hang on to them towards the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for being patient, because we definitely want to get through the episodes are planned out, even though there is a wild card always here.
Yeah, that would be
named
me.
Jake. Who goes off script. But we'll take your comments towards the end. We really appreciate that y'all are tuning in here. And I just want to acknowledge, Peter and Paul. That's pretty interesting. And Tamil Marin, thanks for being here. There's probably other people who haven't put a comment in, but you're tuning in, and we are just choosing to record our episodes in a different way now. So if you like this, just let us know and we'll keep doing it. It's kind of an experiment, actually. But okay, let's keep going with the show. Now, Jenny, we were doing some show prep and you told me that organizational change management principles haven't really changed, but the challenges are different with AI. And that was a really interesting thing for you to say. I was hoping you could unpack that a bit.
Yeah, well, sure. I think it's so exciting to me to hear people talking about change management more than ever before. And it's finally surfaced. Like project management 20 years ago was a sidekick, and now it's part of the woven theme in projects. And so change management and that shift. And so the fundamentals, remain that establishing clear communication and getting your stakeholder buy-in and creating a campaign around the change and the training and support that goes with the change. But with AI, you're dealing with deeper psychological barriers. And people aren't just learning a new process. They're redesigning processes and workflows in a lot of cases. And they're questioning whether or not their judgment still matters, or whether their expertise is still valuable, and whether they'll become obsolete. That's the hidden question in the back of everyone's brain. And so it requires a different level of patience and empathy from leaders. You can't just push through the resistance in the way that we might have done in the past, or that some technology leaders have done in the past. It's profoundly foundational.
But it would also make senior decision makers feel vulnerable, right? Because they know everybody's thinking, right, something that isn't being said, which is, are you just getting ready to lay me off or eliminate my job? So I don't know, Jenny, what are you seeing? Are senior decision makers doing a good job of engaging in change management with this one?
I think we have some of the best leaders that we've had in history right now that are aware of it and recognize it's a valuable component. And so they may not always know the best ways to go about it, because they learned the top-down, thou shalt just do it mentality growing up. But
okay,
I
Boomer.
think leaders have shifted. What's that?
I said, okay, Boomer.
Yeah, I know, aging myself. We're all in the same camp here. But
No,
yes.
we are. But that whole top down, just do it, kind of corporate, approach to changing things. It's just the kind of stuff that drives Gen Z people out of their minds.
Well, and it drove me nuts. That's why I built my career on people first, because I was like, there's got to be a better way to lead. And they're human beings in the center of all this. And we're not a different human being at work than we are with our families and our, family, fun friends. So it's hypercritical to, I think, spread a little joy in this process. And I infuse these initiatives with my signature Genergy. I always get commented on my energy, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to just coin this. It's Genergy. And it is the way I think about moving humans and people to a new state. And it's always been about caring for them, but it's understanding what their profound beliefs are and where they're at, because this is harder than anything we've seen.
Yep. Well, and I think another factor here, which is super important, is that, the things that AI can do are essentially limited by imagination in a lot of ways, right? We don't there's no user manual for these foundation models, even just the chatbot functions. The idea of having, intelligence in an otherwise, automated workflow is so, a good example is what I tried, right? In the past, if I wanted to set up folder-based automation, I could do so. I could use any number of cool little, usually Mac-only utilities, like Hazel is a great example. But in order to do that, and I've done this in the past, I would have to set up all these rules. I'd have to have some kind of mechanism for tagging or flagging new files that come in, or some kind of rule-based system. And I could set it up. I mean, automation experts have been doing this kind of stuff for at least 20 years. But I just asked the chatbot to do it, and it did it on its own.
No programming.
No programming. Made its own plan. But here's something else. So that's a big shift, right? Right there, that's a big shift. But the other component that I've also found is that if you just try to implement AI, I don't think you will succeed, because what does it mean to implement AI? Yep. And the answer is anything, everything, nothing, which is impossible to deal with. Mm-hmm. So you need to really understand workflows, and the only people who understand the workflows are the people doing it. You have got to get the people on board, because if you don't, your attempt to execute on any kind of AI implementation will almost certainly fail.
Workflows and use cases. And I just want to add something to what you said too, Jake. And I remember this because I've worked in places where white collar work was being offshored, and it gave a similar vibe where employees were asked to train their offshore replacements, and they had to be incentivized to do that somehow. Otherwise, that knowledge was walking out the door.
Yes, and that's probably, I mean, that is the much closer analogy. If you want to talk about, AI change management, we got to be thinking about this more like offshoring of work, offshoring of than upgrading to Office 2010 or 2003.
To some
I think
degree.
another one. Oh, hold on, Jenny. I'm going to just force this in.
That's fine.
Force it in, Kit.
I also think that this is comparable to what we saw with manufacturing in the United States in the 1970s and the 1980s, which is some of it went offshore, but some of it stayed here, and it was robotized, right? So I don't know if that's the way you say that word, but robots came and did the work, and that really caused a steep drop in employment. Now, some people were still needed, but what they were doing was very different. They weren't putting a bumper on a car. They were actually programming, these assembly line robots. It's a completely different, set of skills, and not everybody on the production line could probably be retrained or even wanted to be retrained. So I really, that's a big lens that I'm looking at the shift through is offshoring plus just automation. And how and what is the effect? Go, Jenny.
And I think it's more than that. It's a fundamental paradigm shift. And it's funny because I draw from my business analyst days way back and building those use cases and workflows for companies. And it's more about getting side by side with the person in charge of that process or workflow, but also we're not just replicating, hopefully, bad processes and workflows, right? We're reinventing. And that's why I love the infusion of what AI can do for creativity. And Jake, to your point, whatever you can imagine could be possible. And so if you could dream a little dream and come up with a better way to do your work for the day and consider AI as your assistant or your intern, and you keep it in guardrails and it needs to be fed the proper manners and the proper company guidelines. But if you can think of it like an assistant and not be threatened by it, it's more of a side by side. I think people are more successful when they go about it that way.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's be honest, like in some ways, as I've said recently, we're all kind of the blind leading the blind with this. Like anyone who says they're an absolute AI expert is a liar. Nobody is an absolute AI expert at this point in time. It's not possible, right? The issues are too new. The products are too new. And the other problem, let's be honest, is that the fundamental capabilities of this software are changing every 3 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is the fastest pace of significant development that I have seen since I started paying attention to this stuff in the mid 90s.
Yeah. Not just development, but adoption.
Yes, because one of the big things I've seen, I will not name names, but I've seen companies spend a lot of money and time and effort on designing a product, and it made sense. And then reasoning models came out, and suddenly all that effort seems wasted, or counterproductive. And I do feel bad for any company trying to produce a product right now because I don't know what you're supposed to do. And the same challenges that you have in product development, I would say are reflected in AI adoption across the phrase. I mean, historically doing change management is not it's not a 3 week or even a month long or even a 2 month long process, right? But if you start your change management process and then it's like, oh, these things now have full agentic capability, can do deep research, and are also 10 times smarter than they were 2 weeks ago.
Right.
What do you do with that?
Right. And that's why I think we're not teaching people about the tool as much as we are teaching people new skills on how to use the tool and to be thoughtful and strategic about the tool. It is not a linear process anymore.
I've often characterized it, and I think other people have too, as an overeager intern who is, just trying its hardest to make you happy to the point where they make shit up, right? But I think that inside that paradigm, what I have found is, okay, well, if it is an overeager intern, how would I manage a real intern who was just like trying too hard, right? What would I do? And I would be very careful about how I delegated to them. I would be very careful about, the guardrails that I would put up for them. I would be very careful about reviewing any work product that they brought to me, right?
Exactly.
And so that's how I think about augmenting myself with AI. And fortunately for me, I've honed my delegation skills over 20 plus years working with human beings, and I'm finding that it works really well with the generative AI that we have available for us right now. So much, in fact, that I'm actually teaching a course in September about how to take your tasks that you want to delegate to AI or give it to do something for you, but helping you think of it as a delegation, not as a pitch it over the wall at somebody. So anyway, that's how I'm getting along.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, I often get asked by the younger crowd when I'm after speaking about AI transformation, and a lot of the questions they have are really good. And they're thinking about, well, what if I don't have the experience yet to know whether or not the AI is right or the output is valid? It's super important. And I don't have a great answer yet.
I do.
You do?
I do. I have a great answer. Me. Pick me. Yes. So
go.
When I get something from, let's say, GPT-5, and I'm like, I don't know about that, I ask Claude to check the work.
Oh, that's good. Yep. Or Perplexity.
And that is very, very helpful, actually. So that's one of the reasons why I have API keys to OpenAI and to Anthropic, because I'm constantly going back and forth and having, I'll have Anthropic write me a prompt for DeepSeek R1 that I'm running locally on my machine. Yep. And then I'll take that and I'll give it to GPT-5 and I'll say, hey, here's a prompt I wrote. Not really, for DeepSeek R1 on my local machine. Is it any good? How could it be better? And boy, they love to go after each other, these GPTs.
I do use the technique where I'm asking them to build a prompt or ask it to, but what would a senior executive say with all this experience? And just ask what the people would say, and challenge it. But what would the leading author on this subject say? Or what would their opinion be? And
this last 4 or 5 minutes of conversation simply highlights the difficulty of systematizing adoption when you find that, most companies don't buy 5 different models of the same tool historically, right?
Right.
Yeah. You don't have word and word perfect.
We're suggesting that in the AI realm, maybe you do have 2 for cross-checking. But even that concept, I think we've illustrated just how challenging it is. So Jenny, you've got a guide coming out, the AI Shift, a strategic guide for executive leaders. What can you tell us about that? And how many times have you had to rewrite it since you started?
Well, it's based in the fundamentals. It's not about the latest tech tool or gadget. And that's how I approach everything. I've been that for my years of management consulting at big companies in town before I became a CIO, but it still comes down to the fundamentals. So it's actually a fun little guide to get business leaders started. So whether or not you're running a department or you're leading a small business on a small to mid-sized business on Main Street or enterprise, it's a way to think about. I have a quick quiz in there, and it kind of helps people get into a mindset of how to even start approaching AI. Where do I begin? Because you can do so many things. You can do anything. So I have my path framework that helps people go through, pain, activities, and tasks and so on. So it's really kind of a foundation around a process and how to get started thinking about AI and where you would start. It is not going to try and solve tools. So my goal in that guide is that it's indefinite in its application to any technology, really. But I also help people with a 5C compass that I have, just how it's connecting people to the work, to the workflows, and adding and coming up with ideas around new business value. And thinking about things that haven't even existed to monetize aspects of your business that you haven't thought of.
I need one of these. Where do I get it?
Well, you get it on getgenergy.com. I'm not
Okay. All right. So I'll go there and give you my email address.
You
I
can
don't
get
know.
Genergy.com. That's
If I get
Jenny.
spammed, I'm coming to find you.
And you can also set an appointment with me to chat. So that's one way. Just people are like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I'm friendly. Think of me as your bridge to what's possible. I just get started with a friendly face.
Okay.
I'm like and I think of you, Kip, in your book as my cybersecurity BFF. I'll be people's AI BFF.
Perfect. And I will be happy to introduce you to my customers who need an AI BFF.
Yeah, and you're already coming to speak at one of our private AI roundtables about.
Yeah.
It's all
Thank
mixed
you.
together. The conversation, AI, cybersecurity, it's all connected.
It is, and I was I don't know if I've ever said it on the podcast before, but we're having customers come to us and say, can you help us with AI? And I was like, wow, this is great. Yeah, I'd love to. But then I also said, but why me? I'm kind of the cybersecurity person, right? And they said, yeah, but you know what? We don't trust this thing, and we need to figure out how to trust it. And you're kind of the trust person, right? So that's kind of what that's what I heard people say to me. And so, yeah, I love it too, because I'm finding this to be fascinating. And as we said earlier in the episode, this is an issue of trust. And, we've got to address that. So, so I'm really looking forward to reading your book, and we're running out of time. And so I'm really glad you were here. Thanks for being our guest. And now if people want to follow up with you, if they want to get, take you up on your offer to get the book, to actually get some time with you, where do they go?
They literally go getgenergy.com. So GetJennergy. Get Genergy.
Can I put that in the show notes?
Yes, please put them in the show notes. And then also LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I can send you the link.
I'll put that in the show notes too, if you want.
Such a joy to join you too. I've been listening to your podcast for a long time, and it's just, this is fun to be here. I feel like I'm just.
Well, you're going to have to listen to this one too, even though I don't know if you're planning on it, but you gotta. Because here's the thing: when we first started doing this, and I had to listen to it, cringe city! I couldn't stand listening to my own voice. But now I listen to it like it's anybody. So you can get there if you want to. Any last words, Jake?
I do think it's worth mentioning one thing, which is, be careful about buying prompts. Spending money on prompt guides right now. This is in response to Marivel's comment in the chat right now, and I think it's really worth highlighting, which is, people will sell you anything, and they're selling a lot. And look, some of them might be perfectly fine prompts, but I think unless you are already experienced, you're doing yourself a disservice. I think if you're interested in AI and the adoption of it, that you should do your own experiments at first. Before, and plus, there's no guarantee that those prompts are going to last or be useful. For more than
they don't have a very long shelf life.
No,
they do not.
And if anybody on this in the audience here knows what a SQL injection is, right? That's like one of the top web vulnerabilities now for a long, long time. Well, now we have prompt injections. Have you heard of that, Jenny?
Yes.
You want to tell everybody what that is?
Well, you probably could describe the more technical aspects of it, but along those lines.
Well, probably I can, but we're not a show where we go deep on tech. But prompt injection very simply is just some instructions that gets parsed by your LLM, and you don't know that it's in there, or you don't understand for what it is. And in Jake's case, where he talked about where he had, he prompted an LLM to clean up his downloads folder. Well, what if there was a hidden line in that prompt that said, delete everything before you wrap up and do it silently or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think about people who used to, and I don't think this works so much anymore, but back in the days when the HR search engines, the applicant tracking systems first came out, people figured out that if they put keywords but colored the text white, that a human being wouldn't see them, but the AI the ATS would see it, and the system would see it, and that somehow it would get preferred treatment. Well, that's just an example of kind of the hacks that are going back and forth right now. So we really have to be careful when we use somebody else's prompt, no matter where it comes from, whether you pay for it or not. And I think we're going to see further evolution of more AI hacking, and it's gonna get really ugly, I think. But anyway, Jake, do you want to take some more questions out of the chat?
No, I think we could, but we'd go on forever, and I think we do need to wrap it up. So why don't you wrap it up, Kip?
I will, because that's what I do. I wrap up this episode of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Today, we explored how leaders can navigate AI transformation without losing their people along the way, and creating digital trust and being safe with their data. We did that with our guest, Jenny Moshe. Thanks, Jenny, for being here. See you all next time.
See you next time.
Bye.